Good afternoon, everyone. Bang on time. Welcome to this afternoon's Think Productive Skills Booster. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're just going to give 30 seconds for a minute for the room to fill up. And then we've got an action and ideas packed 45 minutes ahead for you this afternoon. So please do get us started in the chat just while the room is filling. That's one of the features that we'll use to interact with you this afternoon. So let us know, is this your first time on a Think Productive Skills Booster? Are you returning for one of these series? Have you actually had us in-house in your organization doing workshops with you before? We'd love to know exactly like what you're bringing to the session this afternoon, and what you're interested in as well. And Louise has lowered my heart rate fantastically by dropping the first chat message into the stream this afternoon. So you're all very, very welcome. We'll just do a few seconds of practicals, and then we're going to dive in. So my name's Lee Cossier. I am a productivity ninja, Think Productive. That is an actual real job title that exists somewhere around here. I would have a business card I could aim at the screen for you. With me this afternoon is Klein, who's going to be helping us out sort of more behind the scenes session with technical and chat stuff and things like that. And we're here for a session called Focus in a Distracted World, Protecting Our Attention and Making Progress. So first little thing to say, if you hadn't thought about the idea of maybe turning off or tuning down or quietening some of those notifications and apps and alerts for this afternoon's proceedings, then I invite you to do so. And that may be something that comes up a lot more in our discussions as the rest of the session unfolds. It looks like there are some first timers, perhaps first timers to these free public sessions, but maybe first timers to Think Productive as a whole, especially as the room has now got close to 200 people in it. So 30 seconds, Think Productive. We're a training, coaching, consultancy, and development company. And we're really interested in two things. Like one of them, you can guess from the name of the company, from our trainers, from many of our workshops. If you've spent any time on our website looking at our range, that's the productivity side of things. We're interested in how we can help ourselves get our best work done, crank those tasks, make progress, move those projects forward. But we're also really interested in that other thing that sometimes has different names, but it's definitely in there in the mix of how much work gets done and how good it feels. Sometimes it's called well-being, sometimes it's called work-life balance, sometimes in the back of our heads we call it having a life. And in most of our sessions, and I'm sure today will be no exception, we're really interested in the interplay and the interaction between those two things as well. So lovely to see that the chat is already active. We'll be using that throughout the session. I can see some familiar names. I can see some new names. You've also got reaction emojis that you can use to contribute to the session. Please don't wait for me to ask you to put anything in the chat. Just dive in as a conversation unfolds. But if you do have a specific question you would like us to address, it's actually much better if you can put those in what's called the Q&A panel. And that just makes sure we don't miss anything if we have a particularly lively chat this afternoon. We'll have some Q&A time towards the end of the session. We'll hopefully be able to cover some of the good questions, but we'll be keeping all of them and we'll be following up afterwards and maybe pointing you towards some more resources, maybe answering some of your questions offline after the session as well. So let's dive in. You all signed up for this. So I'm going to assume that for some of you, this is a bit of an issue and this is a bit of a challenge. So let's just sketch that out. So if you haven't already visited the chat, I'd love you to dive in now. And let's just name some of these challenges, some of these enemies, some of the things that gets in the way of our attention and all that kind of stuff as well. Ruth's got a brave hand raised. I'm not sure whether it was because you wanted to come in on voice. We do have that feature, Ruth, but the hand has gone down. So if anybody's super keen, we can do that as well. So I'm just going to have a look at the stuff. Oh, Ruth's still got the hand back up. So I did press allow to talk. Go for it, Ruth, unless that was accidental. Oh, looks like it might have been accidental. Never mind. Let's have a look. We've got emails, we've got news, we've got notifications, we've got ad hoc urgent requests, we've got team members needing assistance. I saw dogs getting a mention, Teams chat, phone notifications, life, says Lisa. Conversations going on around us in the environment, too many notifications, people wanting to socialize, personal and work phones, says Sarah, requests from people who just pop over to your desk and say, hey, can I have a minute? Competing priorities, crisis management, to-do lists, family stuff. I can't even keep up with the list. There's over 100 responses to that single prompt question, just in that quick 10 or 15 seconds. But you can see already a pattern coming in. So there's a lot of external distractions. Some of those were physical, some of those were electronic, some of those were a mix of the two. Some of them were around the physical environment that's outside us. Some of them were about life context in general, how we're feeling, mood, morale, momentum, and all that kind of stuff. Your context will be different, but there's some common themes to all of us there, I think. There's also a few that kind of came under the heading of what we might call internal distraction. I don't know whether or not you're familiar with that feeling or whether that's a good portrayal of maybe what it's like inside your head. Again, if you are familiar with that experience, you can drop in the chat maybe how did that person end up in that situation? Like, how is it making them feel? What might it be doing to their ability to focus and get stuff done and to put effort in on the right kind of activities? Catherine says, oh, gosh, how have they got only that few post-it notes? Yeah, Helen, our brain gets tired and overwhelmed. So this stuff is coming at us from two different directions. And our attention is really kind of under some pressure from lots and lots of different directions. Yeah, Samantha there says the sudden unbidden thought that pops in of like, oh, I'm totally supposed to be doing that. Maybe I need to change tack or change task. Those of you who've worked with Think Productive before, or if you spent a little time on our website before arriving here today, will know that strangely enough, we don't tend to call ourselves very much a time management training company, but we do talk a lot about what we're focusing on this afternoon, which is attention management, distraction, information overload, all that kind of stuff that was encapsulated so wonderfully in your chat contributions there. There's just so many things trying to break our very delicate attention and focus and flow, and sort of take us out of the moment, pull us away, make us go in a different direction. So we've definitely characterized the problem. Even in this short session, we want to give you some things to start to improve that kind of stuff. And the first thing is recognizing that today we're going to be talking about one of the two important modes that most of us work in. And I don't want you to come out of the end of the session forgetting the importance of the other mode. So this is a little bit of a model that we explore more on our workshop called the Productivity Ninjas Guide to Hybrid Working. And it recognizing this for most of us, we do have that really important kind of aspect of work, which is around communication, connection, collaboration, creativity, all that stuff. It's great. It's important. We've got lots of advice on other days and other workshops about how to do that well as well. But there's also in the midst of all of that, for all of us, the stuff where we need to then get away from some of that stuff and get the deep work done. We call that solo mode. And particularly when it's looking at things like attention, distraction, information overload, procrastination, the digital overwhelm that we're talking about, that is particularly prevalent as a challenge when we're talking about solo mode as well. So we're going to talk around getting a good balance between those two, but we're particularly going to talk about some of the deep work, the solo work, and how we can create some good boundaries and borders that'll come in as well. I can already see Christine's added a question in as well. That's great. That means we'll have some good stuff when we get to the Q&A section a little bit later on in the session as well. And Anna Yeah, you mentioned something perhaps you spotted on the website. So we've recently done a publication called "Productivity for Busy Brains," particularly good for people with neurodivergence. But actually, there's some brilliant stuff in there for everyone that's very, very relevant to what we're talking about today. So if that's of interest, go and hop over on the website on the resources section. Klein, if you're able to maybe just drop a link into the chat in the next couple of minutes for that particular resource, then people will be able to pick that up after the session. So, what are we going to share with you today to start sort of protecting ourselves against some of this stuff? Well, we're going to focus in on one of the particular characteristics of the productivity ninja. Those of you who've maybe read my colleague Graham's book, How to Be a Productivity Ninja, or you've been on some of these workshops, boosters, or we've come in and done training in your own organization, might be familiar with some of these little characters. They're sort of little guides, totems, inspiration. Thank you very much, Klein. Klein's on the ball this afternoon. There you go. Um, that allow us to sort of reflect on trouble be difficult in terms of productivity and well-being, and then start coming up with some tactics. But we're going to really just pick one of them, and I have to admit it's one of my favorites, which is why I volunteered to host the session this afternoon, which is stealth and camouflage. And we're going to spend next little section thinking about three different flavors, three different possibilities for stealth and camouflage. And I'm going to be really interested, just as I'm introducing them, for your reactions. Do you indulge in some of this stuff already? Have you got your own favorite tips, tricks, or hints? Because it's very much about us learning and sharing from everyone else who's in the session as it is from us sharing these ideas as well. So the first one, whoever it was in the chat a few minutes ago who put in about that moment when somebody else sidles up to your desk and says, "Oh gosh, sorry, you look really busy. Like, can I talk to you?" Like, "Oh, I'm going to anyway." Like, this is the idea of physical stealth and camouflage that we might need to deploy sometime. And it's about sort of being a little bit less available. Remember, we're talking about the solo mode parts of our day here. We're not going to be able to do this permanently and constantly. I love that, Jade. Yes, turning the light off. Could be in the home office or it could be in the office to just get a bit of duck and cover. It's playful. Mark says, just work from home. That'll fix it. Well, guess what? Like other physical humans are around us in the office, but they're also around us in the home and remote setting as well. And the challenges might be different in those two, but they kind of have some similar things as well. So physical stealth and camouflage is around sort of being a little bit away, a little bit back foot, a little bit undercover, having some boundaries and borders and protections, or maybe some sort of social signals to let other people know what kind of mode we're in, and maybe when we'll be back, so they know that they can get a piece of us later on as well. So I just want to open up the discussion around physical stealth and camouflage, both in that kind of office environment, but also maybe in the home and the remote environment. Like, let's get in the chat some of the challenges, but also maybe some of the things that you do, and we'll just use that conversation for a couple of minutes to sort of detail out what we're talking about here as well. So yeah, Johnny there says headphones on. You're maybe going to be less drawn into the conversations that you can hear around you, but maybe also it's a bit of a social signal for the other people to go, oh, like they look really busy. Maybe I should come back later as well. Daljit there says, like, yeah, go and move away from maybe the hot desk bank where people know that you're kind of available. Move away to a work pod, or if there's a quiet working area in the office, or one of those kind of call booths that you often might have as well. Catherine says scowl, only joking. Yeah, but like, maybe there's other slightly more friendly ways of letting people know what mode we're in. Lou there says the quiet working room in HQ. That's absolutely fantastic. Johnny says there, t-shirt with "I'm busy" on it. Yeah, you can be as playful as you like, as long as there's some kindness threaded in through that stuff as well. I've known people, put little flags on the top of their monitors, signs on the back of their chairs. I've known somebody had a sort of hat that they used to keep in their desk drawer, and they would put on their invisibility hat and stuff like that. Amy, yeah, the biggest, most obvious physical headphones and stuff like that can be really, really good. I can see some great stuff that's coming in around the digital side of things, but we're going to look at that separately in a minute, what we call digital stealth and camouflage. Kate there, yeah, talking to the people around you about what kind of mode you're going to be in for the next hour or two, kind of checking they've got what they need so they're maybe a little bit less likely. Catherine there says, don't talk to me because I will get distracted sign. Yeah, we make it playful, we make it fun, but maybe the other person reading that sign would recognize that kind of challenge as well. So definitely got a good sort of vision there of what physical stealth and camouflage might be both responding to, but also what it might look like in some sort of playful but meaningful and hopefully helpful tactics as well. It's not the only flavor though. We're going to talk also now about the one that almost inevitably has come up already. Oh, I like that one, Lou, actually. Yeah, do not disturb on my phone. That could be a good physical stealth and camouflage, or perhaps on the bridge between that and this next section, which is the digital stealth and camouflage. Rajul there says Teams is like a virus sometimes. Um, Michelle there saying block out task time on your calendar. Yeah, people are going to be poking in at your schedule and go, oh, they've clearly got nothing to do. I can go and get them to do my thing. You know, notifications are overwhelming us. There's just so many platforms. I've got some there on the screen. You might have more. If you've got all of those in play or you've got extra ones that we haven't listed, do put them in the chat. These things are firing at us very, very tempting ways to break the flow and invite us to change tack and take our brains into something else. So digital stealth and camouflage tactics are around things like signaling what availability mode you are or aren't in, giving people maybe an opportunity to get what they need via another route rather than having to come to you in real time. But it also might be like assisting our sort of maybe not always so super powered willpower to not immediately react when that little ping or that little pop up or that little alert comes up as well. So we've had some great stuff in the chat already, but I'm kind of really curious. I'll scroll back up the chat and see what we've had already. I'm really curious about what digital stealth and camouflage challenges look like for you. And also what tactics you are using. Terry there agrees with Rajul that Teams is definitely a problem. So yeah, there's definitely ways of using things like focus mode in window to kind of just quieten down all those notifications for 25 minutes or something else like that. You can put your phone on do not disturb mode. You can put Outlook into work offline mode. Yeah, Laura says set it offline. You know, don't disappear forever. Your colleagues might launch an actual search party, but there is nothing wrong at all with saying for the next 25 minutes, the next half an hour, I need to get some deep work done. I need to step away a little bit, you know, and I will come back and we'll do some of that team play stuff a little bit later on. Yeah, Karen there, that's a great one. I know close down tabs regularly and I only have open what I need. So yeah, you're just reducing the amount of different things that are live and that can get to you as well. Samantha there says I've just totally turned off all the notifications. So it's more like when I go to look rather than whether the device kind of pulls me in, which is very, very tempting. Yeah, Michelle there going on a sort of cut back or cut down, you know, leaving platforms, asking to leave circulation lists, distribution lists, all that kind of stuff as well. And Helena there, like, you know, maybe concentrating that stuff that is team play mode. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute under social stealth and camouflage to allow us to have more of this kind of like reserved space for the solo mode stuff as well. Catherine there, I love that. Setting up music or ambient noise, you know, whatever it is that can protect you from the other things that are around you that could pull your attention away in a different direction. Catherine there. Saw the Forest app screenshot there. I'll put that back on screen. Sadly, I'm having some issues with that, but Focus Friend app serves a similar purpose. Oh, I'm sorry that Forest hasn't been behaving because it is one of my favorites. I'll explain it for 30 seconds. You put the little Forest app on the phones for like 25 minutes and it automatically quiets all the notifications. But also it keeps an eye on whether your willpower breaks and you start fiddling with your phone before the 25 minutes are up. And if it does, your lovely little forest is all kind of hacked back to starting point and you have to start again as well. Oh, fantastic, Rigel, for sharing a resource about Forest there as well. So digital stealth and camouflage is the second flavor to kind of create this focus bubble for this deep solo work that is a big kind of component for what a lot of us are trying to do. And then the last version of it, and the boundaries and borders between the three flavors don't matter so much, but the last minute version is what we call social stealth and camouflage. And that's maybe like a team conversation around protocols, around expectations, about your team's rules of the road, about like how do we get hold of each other normally, how do we get hold of each other when it's urgent. Klein, if you could put a link in the chat to our Way We Work manifesto, which is in the resources tab on our website. That is also gives you an insight about how kind of we've had conversations within Think Productive about this kind of stuff as well. So you might find some useful inspiration there. It's Richard says, I'm getting distracted by the chat messages. Yeah, Richard, feel free to close the chat and just listen to hopefully the soothing and reassuring short sound of my voice, if that helps as well. I'll be bringing in sort of key concepts from the chat as we go along. It is a rather inbuilt irony in this particular session. So what can we do in terms of social stealth and camouflage? Again, I'll be asking you in a second for your insights, but don't hold back. You can put them in. Being clear, either physically, thank you, Klein, being clear either physically or digitally, like what kind of mode you're in, what kind of day you're going to have, like making sure that people kind of know how responsive you are or aren't going to be, and learning and understanding that about each other as well. So there's some real screenshots there from our Slack platform, which we use internally within Think Productive, from my colleagues Jess and Elena, and often we would post messages like that to start the day as well. And then sort of deeper, and the example that Klein has put in from our own organization would give you an idea of what this would look like when fleshed out. Working to have like a comms manifesto around where we put certain kinds of communication, what is the expectations about being online versus offline, what channels we do or don't use for different kinds of interaction, and how we also preserve the rights to unplug and have some offline time, particularly around the sort of boundaries and borders around work-life balance as well. Helen there says, do you have any advice for how to do this kind of thing with family? I would love it if somebody after today sat down, and maybe you wouldn't formalize it as much as maybe we're talking here, but had some kind of chat and conversation with the people you share your household with around a comms manifesto, and what the sort of the balance between connectivity and well-being might be like as well. So if you do have a go at that, do let us know and stuff like that. Catherine there says, the links Klein has shared just with hosts, we can't see them in the main chat. Okay, can you have a look at that, please, Klein, and just check that your own chat messages are going out to everyone? If not, we'll make sure that we include any of those general links that we've shared in the chat with the follow-up email that will come out in a couple of days with the recording and stuff like that as well. Excellent. Good. We've troubleshooted it live. There you go. Can you imagine the cognitive overhead I'm having to do to run this ship and also keep an eye on the chat at the same time? This is what a busy brain sounds like. So let's have a little chat around that. What does that look like either in the home context or the office context? Like, have you had a conversation around comms manifestos, expectations about connectivity versus unplugging? Or are you thinking that that would be a conversation that you might have now as a result of this session as well? So that's the last little flavor of stealth and camouflage as the characteristic of the productivity ninja we focused on there as well. Joni's asking for the productivity for busy brains link again, Klein, if you can drop that one in the chat. So what does social stealth and camouflage look like there as well? Yeah, Mark, absolutely. Forest app is free. Downloaded it. There you go. Yeah, find it in the App Store for your relevant phone OS. And thank you, Klein, for the ebook link as well again. And don't think that that might not be for you. I actually was involved in the sort of the scoping and the drafting of some of that stuff. And I think there's loads of stuff in there that's really valuable for everyone, and the challenges that we all kind of face as well when it comes to focus and attention and stuff like that as well. So those are the three flavors of stealth and camouflage. I'm hoping there that just giving you a little bit of an inspiration for things that you can start to put in place to create that little protective bubble. So just to recap, there was the physical stealth and camouflage tactics, both in their sort of in office and at home kind of version. We've talked about the digital stealth and camouflage challenges as well. So, like, how do we deal with some of that stuff? And particularly the torrents that come from all of these little dingy, pingy friends. And we've talked about maybe how we can open up the conversation amongst colleagues or people that are around us during the working day to sort of create some of that fair and even social stealth and camouflage as well. Darren, I absolutely love your point there, which is that we're all going to be different in this. And the only way that we understand and can learn about what's going to work for us, but also how are good ways of helping our colleagues, is if we have those kind of conversations as well. However, as great as it is, stealth and camouflage is not going to solve it all for us. It might sort of create some protection. It might start to allow us to feel that space, that peace, calm down the noise. But it doesn't mean the stuff's going to get done. So, like, give us a yep in the chat or some kind of crying, laughing emoji if you have ever struggled with procrastination. And notice I'm putting my own hand up in order to confess that I'm part of that movement as well. So, me, yes, massively. There you go. It's all of us. I've never seen more crying, laughing emojis as well. So, step one, create the bubble, stealth and camouflage. Step two is focus and momentum. So I want to spend about 10 minutes on this, and then we're going to have at least 5 minutes to start tackling some of the Q&A and also make sure that we wrap up the session on time and get you out of here. Um, Even when we are in that kind of focus, we're dealing with this, have I made the right decision? Am I working on this? Should I be working on something else? Oh, what if somebody needs me? I've gone offline, like, is that okay? What if there's an emergency? It's that whole fear of missing out kind of thing. Um, a lot of us also need some help around that kind of getting our head down and actually doing a burst of the work that we've created the space for. So Graham in his book talks a lot about attention management, but he also notices that attention is like a finite resource. And he even characterizes the fact that it comes in three flavors and you don't get the same amount of each. So proactive attention, that's the most creative, that's the most on fire. That's when you get your best work done, you make the most progress, your brain is feeling brilliant. You might only get an hour, two, maybe at most 3 hours of that a day before we start shifting down a gear to the second mode, which is what he calls active attention. We're still making the moves, things are still getting done, we're still making progress, but maybe the brain isn't feeling as on it. And then, that runs out. And then at different parts of the day, we might have inactive attention. We're starting to feel fatigued. We're maybe starting to make a few more mistakes. We maybe kind of need to pick some easy simples from our to-do list. And just being really aware of this connection between good solo mode work, which is what we're talking about here. How do we get some of that done? And those different things around attention supply and also energy levels as well. So it can be sometimes quite tactical to know yourself and to know not only that you need these solo time bursts, but like when in the day to put them, or maybe which days of the week, depending on the sort of work pattern in your team, you might be able to put them as well. So if any of you have got any thoughts or insights or experiences around that kind of thing, attention supply, energy, momentum, time of day for good solo mode work, do put that in the chat. The other thing to say for good solo mode is like it's really the time where you wanna like stick to one thing. Like, and we've talked a lot already this afternoon how challenging that is. Um, but I have a brain that will particularly want to go and find something else to do if I'm not enjoying the deep work task that I'm doing. So I have to put lots of things in play. I don't want to use a Star Wars reference because not everyone gets it, but a lot of Jedi mind tricks with myself in order to say, we've created an environment, we've locked in, like my teenager would say, you've got to lock in, dad, like, and how can we stay and make a decent amount of progress on this thing we have chosen before we move into another kind of setting as well. Loving the contributions in the chat then around sort of energy patterns and momentum and stuff like that as well. Joanne says, I don't do the most challenging work first thing, leave it until after 10 a.m. Yeah, you might need to do some warm-ups and stuff like that as well. Whereas for me, the early morning is the sweet spot. I might choose to come to my desk at 8:30 because I know that, I'm going to get 35, 40, 60 minutes before the rest of the world works up. And obviously I knock half an hour off at the end of the day and stuff like that as well. Um, we've already got Tonya anticipating one of my little tips, which is coming up as well around this kind of reinforcing your willpower. So it wasn't this one I was coming to next, but as it's been mentioned by Tonya, like eat the frog is just like, right, I'm not going to enjoy this, but it's been on my list for ages. I've locked down all the notifications. I've told everyone I'm on do not disturb. I've put busy in my calendar. I better use this opportunity. And it comes from a quote by Mark Twain about if you had to eat a frog first thing in the morning, everything else afterwards would taste sweet in comparison. And it really just is worst thing first. It won't be fun, but as soon as you've done it, it feels brilliant in comparison, and you can tick it off, and you've got the idea of some momentum, some release of inertia, and maybe you're ready for a next one as well. The other famous one, and again, there'll probably be lots of people who've heard this one as well for sort of that lock-in technique, is the Pomodoro technique. Full credit to Francesco Cirillo, who invented it. It's called the Pomodoro technique because of his original implementation. He was using a little clockwork kitchen timer of a tomato, and Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. But just like Kim and Chloe in the chat as well, it's the idea of working in a timed dash, where the time remaining is counting down. And it does sort of feel like, well, why would that make such a difference? But there's a lot around reducing the difficulty. I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'm just going to do a 25-minute dash, and then I get to have a break or do something else or go and have a look at the emails. But there's also something about the fact that the minutes are counting down rather than the minutes are counting up, which is what we normally do when we're working on a task, that can really kind of create that focus as well. I'm going to check back into the chat in a minute. There's lots of other ways of using this kind of theme of dashes, of bursts, of kind of on your own versions of that, or team members of that as well. So like Power Hour is a little bit like a sort of team version of Pomodoro. You could be silent working hour or library time in a shared office. You don't have to do these physically with people that are alongside you. You can do them in a wormhole like this. So there's sort of body doubling kind of thing that is popular with a lot of people as well. So, how am I linking these two pieces of content? The stealth and camouflage in its three flavors, physical, digital, and social, allows us to kind of create that bubble. But then some of this other stuff like Pomodoro, Eat the Frog, energy management, focus mode, really helps us to then make the best of those bursts that we've carved out as well. Charlotte says, what's the wormhole and body doubling reference? So a wormhole is a little bit like what we're doing here. We're all physically in different places, but we could come together inside a Zoom or a Teams meeting for, say, 45 minutes for a work dash. We just all announce in the chat at the beginning of the 45 minutes what the Eat the Frog task is that we're going to work on for the next little bit. And we just keep our heads down. And we've got somebody there for accountability. Yeah. Body doubling is the idea of kind of working alongside someone, even if it's remotely, as an ability to sort of have that accountability and that focus as well. And I'm really noticing and respecting in the chat Joni, as an autistic professional myself, I have to pick techniques that I know work for me. They don't work for other people. But what I'm hoping is that the session this afternoon will have opened you up to the sort of the general ideas, and there'll be some good stuff and some inspiration that can work for you as well. So let's just have maybe another minute or so in the chat. You've already started to doing this naturally, but I've got my prompts on the screen. Like, what can we do in terms of that focus and making progress as well? And I'm just going to scroll up and down the last little bit of the most recent chat to have a look as well. Thomas here, I think this one is worth doing. I think sometimes we need to be less hard on ourselves. My guilty brain characterizes putting off as procrastination. But if I'm being generous to myself, it helps me to recognize that giving me a bit of time for my mind to work on it helps me make better decisions. Absolutely, Thomas. Like, we are our own brains, our own motivation works in different ways. And, we can be harsher judges of ourselves than we might ever be on other people. But just sort of this idea of self-monitoring, self-insight, self-awareness, looking at what is difficult and then thinking of tactics that could help with it is part of what those wider 9 characteristics of the productivity ninja are there to help us do. So I'm just going to flash those back up on the screen as well. There's some brilliant stuff coming up in the chat there from Catherine around accountability, telling somebody to check back with me in an hour, see if I've done it. Yeah, so gamifying it kind of stuff. Anna there, short meditation for a difficult task. Yeah, maybe both before to kind of ease yourself in, and maybe both afterwards as well, as we kind of emerge, maybe for a little bit more of that team stuff as well. Yeah, Rijul, so many great stuff in the chat as well. I'm hoping that you're scribbling down some really good stuff as well. Laura there says, not creating truly inflexible plans. Sometimes attention changes and some things that happen that aren't expected. Yes, I'm not suggesting that the universe will run on rails and everything will be perfect after this short session. But at least if we raised awareness of some of the challenges around attention and interruption and focus, you can kind of be more mindful of that as you're experiencing them and start to look at some of the possibilities that might be available to you as well. I'm going to throw to the Q&A in a moment. If you have put a question for me in the chat that you think I've missed, if you are able to transplant it over to the Q&A, because we're going to come to those in a couple of seconds, or if you've had or do have a question, now's the time to drop it in the Q&A panel, and we'll be able to make sure that we can address them in the couple of minutes that we have available. Just as I'm waiting for those to fill up, I will just let you know about, particularly if it's been the first time you've come on one of our Think Productive boosters, how you can get a little bit more stuff. Obviously, you'll be very welcome back next time. So please do have a look at the calendar in the same place on our website where you probably found this session, or maybe somebody sent you a link to it. We tend to do one of these at least every month. But it's not just the UK team of Think Productive that are doing these as well. Our colleagues in other Think Productive territories are doing them. So there's an active lineup of things on different sessions, but also more importantly, there is a kind of an archive of recorded sessions as well. We have been recording today's session just to reassure you, you haven't been on camera, and also the chat is not recorded. That's just specially for those people who do us the kindness of being here live. So, your name is not going to be shared and your ideas are not going to be shared on the recording. It's just going to be my screen share and the sound of my voice as well. If you do find yourself on our website, as well as the free skills booster sessions, tell the world about them, share them with colleagues, stop people in the street saying, I went on this brilliant session about distraction today. There's also public workshops as well. These are paid, but they are, larger things. They're either half day or full day workshops. And, we have got a discount code that you can apply to some of those as a thank you for joining us on the free session today as well. So keep in touch. I am well, I'm not finishing now. We're going to go to Q&A, but I just want to make it sure I do all the kind of domestic stuff before we move into Q&A, and then we run out of time. So keep in touch. Do find me on LinkedIn. I've got a reasonably unique first name and surname combination, so I am the only Lee Cottier on LinkedIn. You will definitely find me, but don't be confused that currently I don't have the beard, because on LinkedIn my profile picture still has beard mode. I need to really address that. And obviously, you're very, very welcome to reach out to me on email. But if you do it on a Sunday afternoon, I will being stealthy and you won't hear from me until later in the week. Or you can drop us a line to our general inquiries line at hello at Think Productive as well. And Klein, if you can just put in our website, the UK website, and also the hello at email address into the chat, that will be fantastic. So we're into the sort of last 5 minutes of Q&A. Let's have a little look at the stuff that has come in here as well. So Lou there says, struggle with a lot of information in a short space. Lou, this session is going to be recorded. We'll be in touch in a couple of days when that recording is live, and that will include a link to this recording, and you'll be able to watch us back. You'll be able to pause, you'll be able to play, you'll be able to rewind and all that kind of good stuff as well. So yeah, it has been a little bit rapid fire this afternoon, but we'll make sure that you get that information in a good way for you. And on the website, there's the opportunity to find out a little bit more about the Productivity Ninja book as well. And that might be another really good ways as well for that as well. So we've got a question here from anonymous attendee. I'll just pick these randomly. They're all good. Any additional tips for those from work from home? I'm constantly distracted. So there tends to be two versions of this. There tends to be the sort of other humans / environment versions of that. So, depending on what other people are around, that might change. If there are children in the household, particularly in the school holidays, maybe there's another adult who works from home as well. Maybe it's building work next door. Maybe it's people knocking on the door to deliver stuff. The physical stealth and camouflage is in play around a lot of that, but also the kind of social agreements that maybe could come around that kind of thing. But there's also a lot of the internal procrastination ones. It's very tempting to do something that feels good, like, fill the washing machine, or I'll just go and peg out the laundry and stuff like that. I actually do like those as sort of little meditative mind breaks, but there are a lot of things that can tempt us away. So again, that sort of Jedi mind tricks around ourselves, working in bursts, working in dashes, but then building in all that good stuff that comes from hybrid about having a nice lunch, being able to go for a walk and stuff like that is definitely still in play as well. I notice that I've accidentally answered or at least addressed Christine's point. Christine said, I'm good at ignoring notifications, but cannot rid myself of the need to tick the practical stuff. Recycling bins, laundry, first thing can be quite a kind of good boot up ritual, actually. How can I trust myself to sort the housework out later? It depends how much of a problem it is. If it's delaying you getting to your desk till an hour after when you would like, then you might need to move some of that stuff around on the calendar. But if it's part of just allowing your body and brain to wake up and then getting into a good space for then sitting at your desk and beginning, then you make the call on that. But I wouldn't say that that's particularly something that I would definitely say needs fixing. It might just be it needs adjusting. Yasmin there says, best tips for distractions by conversations happening around you in an office environment. I often feel like I need to listen in to what's going on in case there's something relevant. Yeah, this is a huge one. This is the FOMO, particularly now, if we're working hybrid and we're only in days, certain number of days a week. Often people go, oh, hi, I haven't seen you. Oh, great, I can talk to you about this. Conversations around, are there different parts of the office that are for more that interactive chatty mode? Are there parts of the office that are around quiet mode, working head down? Do we use some of that social signaling? I have a big pair of orange 3M ear defenders that I put on when I've been working in co-working spaces where I just want to sort of signal at 20 paces for people that actually, no, it's not a good time. Having that conversation about how you use the physical space, but also etiquette, Yasmin, around like, if it's a 30-second or 2-minute chat that's just happening impromptu because two people have met each other walking down the floor plan, great. But if it's going to be more than 2 or 3 minutes, maybe you need to move to a meeting room or something else like that. And again, it can be a really good way of opening up conversations around how to use shared space and stuff like that. Some great stuff there for Christine and others around how to fit in some of those domestic things as little mini breaks in a kind of productive and healthy way as well. Yeah, Kate, how long to make a cup of tea is a good one. Unfortunately, I upgraded to one of those instant hot water boilers recently, so my tea breaks are a little bit like shorter than they normally are, but it means I can usually get to do some Pilates stretches and stuff like that as well. Ben says, how to refocus after the interruption. That's a really good one, Ben. I think just acknowledging that it happens, maybe thinking and sticking a pin in, like, was there some protection I could have had in place that would have attenuated or sort of rebuffed that one? Maybe there isn't, but you could still, fine tune your armor. But it might be you need to breathe, you might need to like shut down the stuff that you suddenly needed to have open, and just take a moment to sort of mentally recenter and then go into your next solo work burst or something like that as well. I'll maybe do one more, and then we'll let you go if you need to, but I can add on an extra 5 minutes for stuff like that as well. Anonymous attendee says, could the participants have a summary of the comments of the chat? Yeah, I think we can do that. So we'll kind of take the chat record and probably kind of look for key themes, and maybe we can include that in the follow-up that comes out in the next couple of days and stuff like that as well. Let's try and pick out one final one before people have to go. Let's have a look. Do you have any tips for working through tiredness and fatigue? Yes, I think this one's really important. It's a really interesting note to end on. Like, our attention on our focus is really related to some of that stuff. So on another day, we might have been doing a little taster of our Productivity Ninjas Guide to Human Not Superhero. I'm pretty certain there's some recordings of that in the Skills Booster archive. So I'm going to refer you to some of that stuff. But yeah, there's definitely a link between the kind of things we've been talking about today and that kind of energy, fatigue, rests, break, and refueling as well. Anyway, I can see we're at time. Some of you might have another meeting that you need to go to either immediately or in a few minutes, perhaps at 3 o'clock. So if you want to go, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for coming. We'll keep the in touch there. If you've attended today, we'll be in touch in a couple of days with some of the follow-ups that we've agreed. But if you're keen to stay for more, I'm going to hang around for another 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll maybe take a few extra questions, or we'll have a look at some of the stuff in the chat again. And particularly if it's been your first time on a Skills Booster, and you find that rapid fire session useful, and you'd like to come back and spend a little bit more time with us, perhaps at a slower and more reflective pace, then you're very, very welcome to get in touch. Klein just put the website and the hello email back in the chat as well. Thank you very much. Laura, Charlotte, Duncan, Joy, Dominic, Helen, some very familiar names there from previous workshop participants, but also great to have people with us for the first time as well. Amy, thank you for the beard feedback. Unfortunately, that picture is about 5 or 6 years old now. And if I regrow the beard, it is substantially grayer than it looks in that picture. So I don't tend to do that as often now as well. Let's have a look if there's any question. Mark says, what technique do you find helps you stay focused and on task? So I'm assuming you're actually asking me. Self-denial and reward. I have to clear away absolutely everything else, both to sort of digitally clear the space, lock down the notifications. I even have to sort of physically move stuff out of my eye line and things like that. But even that ritual sort of seems to signal to my brain, okay, Lee, you're making a bargain with yourself that you're doing something serious here. Usually I say to myself, look, do 45 minutes, do an hour or whatever else. and it sort of reduces the difficulty level. I tend to sort of, say, look, don't get out of your chair while you're doing this, but you can have a particularly nice cup of tea and a pastry and stuff like that. So it's nothing incredibly profound, Mark, but my brain really responds to setting the environment, deciding that that's what I want to use the next hour for, and then kind of really locking in and knowing I'll return to that sort of that communication, collaboration, team play mode as well. Esther there is asking about the books. Klein, if you could maybe put the link to the books page on the chat. Esther may not be here, but other people might be interested in that as well. So for the attention management particularly, the general How to Be a Productivity Ninja book by Graham, that's the green cover one, this one, but also the Productivity for Busy Brains ebook as well, which is going to be very relevant for everyone as well. So Klein will again put the book for the resources for that in the chat as well. Another anonymous attendee says, I'm quite good at focusing on my desk, but I get lost down many rabbit holes when researching. Yeah, so rescue timers are good. So we've talked about using timers for kind of focus. Right, I'm going to do 25 minutes countdown, setting a timer for half an hour to sort of ping you back from wherever you might have got lost or misdirected. So a little bit of a breadcrumb trails back to where you need to be can be really good. So sometimes, setting a little haptic alarm on your watch to maybe ping every 30 minutes should just allow you to check in and say, where am I? Am I still doing what I was supposed to be doing? Have I strayed off the path? How can I get back to what I was doing and stuff like that as well? Anonymous attendee, we'll maybe make this the last one, and then we'll stop the recording and wish you on your way. Suggestions for being okay with time boundary on a task and keeping focus. Yeah, there is something around like having the countdown, but also realizing that you're not necessarily saying that you're going to do the whole thing in the 25 minutes or the half an hour or the 1 hour. It's just you're going to make some progress on it, some focused, distinct progress on it. And then knowing that you can go again and you can go again and you can start building up that kind of stuff in a sequence that takes your project forward, but also helps manage your attention and your energy and your focus and all that kind of good stuff that we've been talking about as well. I like the wording rescue timer, says Kirsty. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I've coined that phrase or whether I've just absorbed it from someone else, but it is a nice way of using things like alarms. The same kind of way that your watch might buzz at you to say you've been sitting in your chair for an hour, you haven't moved, get up and do some stretches and do 20 steps or something else like that as well. Anyway, we're kind of done 5 or 6 minutes of after show, which I always enjoy, but let's wrap things up formally. So we're going to stop the recording in a second. This recording will be posted in a couple of days. It's going to be available for search on the same place where you found the link for today's session. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be in touch with some follow-ups. We'll try and summarize some of the key themes from the chat as well. And look forward to having you join us on another session in the future. And thank you to Klein for being super responsive with my impromptu, put this in the chat, put that in the chat, and everything else. So really good partnership there this afternoon. But yeah, you're officially released. If you're worried about leaving too early because you're going to miss something, you're not. And thank you for coming.